Hello, my name is Wendy Potomsky and I'm the managing partner and owner of Retake Furniture Rentals. Retake is once again a proud supporter of the Canadian Film Festival and is working to contribute to the Canadian film and TV industry by making it an easy and sustainable place to do business. Retake provides sustainable short and long-term furniture rental options to meet production schedules and product needs. Retake also understands the importance of set design and the dynamic nature of the film and TV industry, which is why we created a company to specifically support Canadian filmmakers. Retake can assist you in setting up your production office with sustainable alternatives to keep your team working safely as we all head back to work. We use sustainable approaches to minimize product going to landfill, which means any product supplied by Retake is helping to support the circular economy. Our in-house upholstery services can tailor our product to meet your set design requirements and match your color schemes. Contact us to discuss your office furniture needs. Our goal is to help you get back to work as safely and efficiently as possible. Stay safe, everyone, and enjoy the films and shorts at this year's Canadian Film Festival.
Sit back, relax, witness the greatest. It don't get better than this. Take a seat, 'cause it don't get better than this. Take a seat, 'cause it don't get better than this.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Pogue. I'm the Industry Series Producer for the Canadian Film Fest. Before this presentation, I would just like to acknowledge and recognize that for us, this meeting takes place on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We are so grateful to have the opportunity to meet and work on these territories. But since we are on Zoom across Canada and maybe beyond, I invite us all as creators of culture to help improve our relations with Indigenous people and uphold the values of collaboration and inclusion in all that we do. Welcome everyone to our live stream panel for Leveling Up, working with Canadian organizations in Canada. I would like to throw it over to our moderator, Daniel Bekerman. Thank you so much for coming on board today, who will be introducing us to our incredible panelists today. Daniel is a wonderful filmmaker and producer for Scythia Films and the newly launched Good Question Media. He's produced many films, but most importantly for this festival right now is an executive producer for Carmen.
Hey everybody.
Take it away.
Oh, yeah. Hey. So thank you, Jen. And yeah, I'm Dan. I'm a producer in Canada. I've been doing it for probably 15 years or 20 years or something like that. You know, I remember very vividly when I was doing my micro budgets and, you know, making movies for $20,000, $100,000, 200, you know, I did a few of those before I started doing bigger things. And I really remember how intimidating it was actually getting started in the larger industry and starting to talk about millions of dollars and how intimidating that was for me. And what I learned over time was that even though it feels at times like filmmaking is, it's you against the world, really there is a very good infrastructure set up in Canada. And you know, it's not always perfect, obviously, but it's something to work with, not work against. And the reason really becomes clear as you go on in your career and you do, you know, you try to make an actual living at working in this industry. These institutions, some of whom you'll meet now, are what makes that possible, what makes that sustainable for you and for crew, and, you know, ensures that that we have an industry where people can work in it and actually, you know, not just burn out in you know, a year. That can still happen because it's very tough. but working with unions and guilds and our institutions that support the industry gives us a fighting chance to have a sustainable career and business, and also to compete on the international stage in a real way. So it's something to really look at as a partnership between you, your company, if you have a company yet, and you know, the overall industry working together. You have a chance at not just being, frankly, a flash in the pan. You know, it gives you a chance to build something sustainable, and that's important because when I was starting out, it was not sustainable at all. It was a matter of, you know, scratching and clawing just to pay my rent for years, and that's normal. But you can work your way to finding that kind of balance point, working with partners like these. So I'm going to jump right into it and ask people to introduce themselves, and then we'll get into some details of what each person does. So we'll start with Hiba at CAVCO.
Hello, I'm Hiba Hreiche. I am a senior tax credit officer at CAVCO. I have been working with CAVCO for 15 years now.
Great. And can you tell us, Hiba, a little bit about the basics, like what are tax credits? Because, you know, people talk about them all the time, but I think even me, I could benefit from hearing from someone who's an actual true expert what they are on a basic level.
Absolutely. So I want to say in a nutshell, but it's hard to put it in a nutshell. But a tax credit is an amount of money that can be used to reduce taxes owed. Namely, at CAVCO, we offer 2 federal tax credits. CAVCO, first and foremost, is an office at the Department of Canadian Heritage. And along with the CRA, with the Canada Revenue Agency, we co-administer 2 tax credits. Our focus here would be on the Canadian tax credit, which is the CPTC, the Canadian Film or Video Production Tax Credit. It is 25% of your eligible labor expenditure or eligible production cost. I guess hopefully throughout this panel, we can give a bit more information about the tax credit, but you apply basically with us for certification, and then you use that certificate to claim your tax credit with the CRA. Okay,
great. Yeah, and maybe I will circle back to you and ask you a few more detailed questions, and there'll probably be some questions from the audience too. Absolutely. But we'll go through everyone and just get the basics like that. So Melissa at TELEFILM.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm Melissa Amer. I'm the interim feature film executive for Ontario and Nunavut at TELEFILM Canada. At TELEFILM, we promote Canadian talent. We provide financing for all stages of development, production, marketing your feature film. We partner with the CMF and administer their programs. We support the development of the industry at large and manage co-productions. I've been at TELEFILM kind of like you, Hiba, for 15 years, working primarily on the administration of the CMF programs, working in television and digital, and for the last couple of years, working on the feature film project financing team.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Melissa. All right, Erin Creasey at Ontario Creates.
Hi everybody. Hi, Dan. So my name's Erin. At Ontario Creates, I oversee our programs for a number of sectors that we support. So all of our funding and investment programs for the film and television industry, for interactive digital media, and for book and magazine publishing. And in my role and the things that my team works on, that also includes the international business development that we offer to those sectors, and in overall industry support. So things like professional development, capacity building, business development opportunities for the industry. And Ontario Creates in a nutshell, we're the provincial, we're an agency of the provincial government of Ontario. We administer the provincial tax credits for the creative industries. We offer a number of investment programs that I can talk a little bit more about. And we also have the Film Commission for the province, which has the task of attracting investment from outside of Canada, so projects to come work here, as well as providing a lot of resources to domestic producers for film and television as well. And I've been here a much shorter time than my colleagues, but previous to working in Ontario Creates, I actually come from the creative sectors. I worked in book publishing for about 2 decades.
Greg Jeffs, William F. White.
Hi, everybody. This is cool. I too have a 15-year jacket. This is my 15-year working with William F. White.
Wow.
Started in Alberta, moved out here to Toronto about 3 years ago. I have a very awesome position at William F. White, working specifically with emerging Canadian filmmakers in general that are trying to elevate their content, trying to find a way to fit into the marketplace, which has changed exponentially with the advent of places like Netflix and Amazon. So what is William F. White? William F. White is a 50-year-old plus company, Canada's oldest film and television equipment supplier. We have offices in Vancouver, Calgary, Winnipeg, Toronto, Halifax, and a depot up in Sudbury. And we are, primarily based in lighting, grip, and power. We've recently, over the past 5 years, moved into camera. Specialty equipment has always been kind of our bag, as well as studios and location equipment. So we have quickly become the one-stop shop for film production equipment. And again, within this massive billion-dollar industry, I'm very blessed to say that William F. White has allocated focus of people on their team, myself, and I have a counterpart out in Vancouver, Tug Phipps, whose sole focus is to be the point of contact and the shepherd through the craziness of the film industry for Canadians who want to get their films made. So it's really exciting to have the support of such a massive company to help get those Canadian voices out there.
Thank you, Greg. Taisa Dekker.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taisa Dekker, and I am the industry relations staff person at Actra Toronto. So my role involves reaching out to emerging content creators. So I get to connect with folks who are doing web series, film, TV, video games, audiobooks, and explain the benefits of engaging professional, unionized performers. I feel like we're all in a bit of a club here today because I'm just shy of my 16th year with Actra. And I started in the film industry when I was 15. So I came from production. I used to be a little production assistant, and I started off my career. I'm from Calgary, like me and Greg, both from Alberta. I was in Alberta, and I worked for Actra Alberta, and I did work for Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and I relocated to Toronto and worked with Actra Performers' Rights Society, then joined the film department at Actra Toronto, and now I'm industry relations with Actra Toronto. So I have a good Canada-wide view of the industry, and I'm very excited to share all about Actra when we get to that portion, because I have a little presentation.
Great. Yeah, that is funny because I actually started when I was 15, and I said I've been doing it for 15 years. I think that's a lie. I think it's like more closer to 20. But yeah, wow, 15. All right, I'm going to go back through and chat with everybody in some more detail and ask everyone to essentially kind of give a little presentation on what they do in their respective institutions or companies. And I just want to say these are the superstars, folks. I can't see all your reactions in the audience, but I hope you're applauding, because these are the relationships that will build your career, and the key is to look at them as relationships, not just a one-way thing where you go and get a thing from each of them as if they're just kind of bank machine or something like that. That's not how it works. It's a two-way relationship, and what you give is just as important as what you get. especially, some basic principles, hopefully, that people bring to relationships, like honesty. That's a foundation for navigating all of these relationships with these key partners. So let's learn a little bit more. So Hiba, let's hear more from you about tax credits and how to interact with tax credits.
So I guess what I could do is give you basically a conclusive, or not a conclusive, list of our eligibility requirements, sort of pointers for emerging producers, how to tackle the tax credit. First and foremost, we are here to help. The process can be a bit daunting. It could be complicated, especially for first-time producers. So do reach out to us even before you start your production, because sometimes you may have already started and you don't realize that you've already done something that could offset you. So do reach out to us in the early process of beginning your film or production. Check out our guidelines. They are very user-friendly, and everything you need to know, I promise, is in the guidelines. Nevertheless, let's start with sort of like a list of what you kind of need to go through in order to qualify for the tax credit. Once again, it's not conclusive, so you can't quote me and say, we did everything she said, and why are we not qualified? So first and foremost, your production company must be a prescribed taxable Canadian corporation and must be a qualified corporation. And what that means is the applicant production company must be primarily in the business of producing film or video productions. So that's first. Another thing to note is copyright must be owned by the production company or by a prescribed person for at least 25 years. Genres would be another thing to consider. We have a list of ineligible genres, I believe section 4 of our guidelines. Make sure you steer away from the ineligible genres. Another very important point is key creative personnel and producer-related personnel. So we have a point system in which a production, in order to qualify, must obtain 6 out of 10 Canadian points. Producers and producer-related must be Canadian. Here, I could talk about CAVCO IDs, but I don't know if we should sort of wait for that to later. But CAVCO IDs are the tool that we use to make sure a production or a producer or a key creative person is Canadian. A point here to producers is make sure you obtain those CAVCO IDs up front before you hire someone, because so many times, and we've seen it so often, where producers kind of fall into a predicament of hiring someone and then they have a fallout, or the person simply doesn't want to apply, and then it could offset the production. So make sure you get those CAVCO IDs up front. Costs, 75% of production costs must be Canadian, 75% of post-production costs must be incurred in Canada. So it is important to do those calculations up front and make sure you're not offset. Exploitation must be shown in Canada within 2 years. You must be able to provide a commitment from a Canadian broadcaster or distributor that the production will be shown in Canada within the first 2 years. Another point here to consider is you cannot grant a non-Canadian entity exploitation rights within Canada in the first 2 years. I feel like I'm just spitting out so much information at once, and I hope it's not overwhelming, but this is the last point I want to make. A producer must be able to demonstrate that they are retaining an acceptable share of revenue, and an acceptable share of revenue is defined as at least 25%.
Great. And, I wanted to say one thing about tax credits, a couple of basic things. First of all, it's important, because I think everybody's pretty internationally minded with their projects. Everyone wants their projects to reach a global audience, ideally. I don't know any filmmaker who doesn't. And so it's important that you know what the Canadian tax credits mean to you as a Canadian. And a couple of things on that is they're sort of a starting point in terms of structuring. And that if you meet the criteria, you can incorporate tax credits if you do it correctly and you meet the criteria. So it's a really great kind of starting point when you start to think about how you're going to finance your project. And the great thing about the Canadian tax credits in particular is their stability. And that's something that when you take a step back and look from an international perspective, it makes the Canadian credits special in the world, because there's not too many tax credits that are as stable as the Canadian credit. And that is why it's actually really important that we continue communicating with our governments that stability is key. And that's why the production industry in many ways has grown as much as it has. And everybody, it's good right now. This industry is in a good place. And the years of building up that stability through not having too many disruptive changes to the tax credit is a big part of why it's so good in Canada right now. It's good to work in film, and it's good to build your own projects. Of course, there's destabilization in where you get your money from internationally, but in terms of the basics in Canada, we're starting in a very good place, and that's important to know. And when you do speak to people, if you go to a market in the US or something, people know that around the world. And that's something that gives you a great starting point as a Canadian. And the real basic distinction that Hiba was giving some good, precise information on, but the real basic distinction with the tax credits is between the credit that you qualify for if you're a CAVCO production versus a service production. So that's sort of the real basic fork in the road to determine do you meet the CAVCO requirements? And you can get lots more information from that on the details of how to do that from Hiba and from the website. It's fairly simple, really, meeting the criteria. If you do, then you go down the CAVCO road and you can access those tax credits. If you don't, you go down the service road and you access different tax credits.
But they're both within CAVCO. So the PSTC, I didn't go. I felt like the panel is more geared towards Canadian productions.
Sure, yeah.
But we do have the two tax credits. The CPTC is the Canadian tax credit, and then the PSTC is the production services tax credit. And like you're saying, it's true. Where we have very often where the production is also Canadian, but they don't qualify for the CPTC. They can go down the PSTC route. So there are two tax credits at the filmmaker's disposal. But the reason people would prefer the CPTC is because it's a higher payout. So the CPTC is 25% of eligible labor, whereas the PSTC is 16% of eligible labor.
And those are the federal-based credits. And then there's provincially based credits in not every province, but most of the provinces have some form of tax credit. And you can combine them. And there's sort of some complexities in there that, when you combine them in terms of how they affect each other. But the basics are there's a provincial credit, federal credit, and they're both administered by CAVCO, but the distinction I was making is whether you meet your CAVCO points to qualify for the credit you're talking about. So essentially, you want to determine that at the beginning, and then you can start to calculate what tax credits you're eligible for. Now, it is complicated, and you can only do so much as a producer to know about everything in the industry. Frankly, there's too much to learn. Like, I am 100% still learning 20 years later. And so I just want to bring up, again, the theme of partnership. You might want to work with a partner who has some deep knowledge of tax credits, at least your first time. Once you understand it, it's relatively straightforward, but it can be a bit intimidating. So you might want to work with someone who's just done it before. All right, let's talk to Melissa Amer more about TELEFILM.
Okay. Well, just thinking about production specifically, there's kind of three lanes that you can enter TELEFILM to apply for production financing. And the first lane is our Talent to Watch program, which is for first-time filmmaking teams and for projects that are kind of budgets between, I think it's $150,000 and $500,000. It's really for emerging filmmakers, or I think a change, and I'm not sure if it was this year or just recently in any case, is if you've made a Talent to Watch film previously, you would still be considered emerging and you could apply for a second time. So that would be kind of like the very emerging filmmaker lane to access production financing. The second lane is through our low budget program. And I'm the feature film executive for Ontario. I have colleagues in the East, in English Quebec, and in the West, and we administer the low budget programs for our regions. So that's for projects that have budgets less than $3.5 million, and you don't need you don't need a Canadian distributor to be eligible to apply. And then the third lane is for bigger budget productions that are projects with budgets greater than 3.5 million, and you would need an eligible distributor in order to apply.
Great. Well, so telefilm is obviously very central to building a career as a Canadian filmmaker.
Yeah.
And certainly for me, my first couple of films did not involve telefilm. They were micro budgets. But then, it became clear to get over that hump of doing micro budgets where you're probably not making any money or you're spending your own money, to actually having a business that's sustainable. It is incredibly challenging wherever you are in the world to build a budget, a finance structure of $1 million or $2 million or $3 million.
Yeah.
It is absolutely uphill.
Yeah.
And it feels like everything's working against you when you're trying to do it. And it kind of is, because people, because it's very competitive and people don't want to part with their money, understandably, unless there's some kind of really compelling reason to do it. Also, we live in a capitalist world, and the tendency is for projects that are really directly, obviously commercial are the ones that can get mostly are the ones that can get money privately invested. So to me, what is so important about telefilm is that there is a cultural mandate within telefilm. There's an industrial mandate as well, but there's a cultural mandate where you can have a project that if you just went to some private investor, there would be no chance that they would invest, because there's not an obvious comparison film that made a gajillion dollars. Maybe your idea is actually original, and the market sometimes sees that as a bad thing, and that's sad. But luckily, there's institutions like telefilm that can support sometimes visionary ideas that may well find a place in the market once you're done, and may well even, who knows, light the world on fire. But the getting over the hump of getting it financed is truly daunting every time, even for me now still. And knowing you're not going to use telefilm necessarily on every single project, you're not going to partner with them all the time, but knowing that there's that possibility when the fit is right is really huge. So, there's been a lot of changes at telefilm recently, structurally. So I don't know if we can get into that a little bit.
Sure.
People are still confused about that.
Sure.
But getting to know the system as it stands and getting to know the people involved is really important.
Yeah.
Just for your own comfort level as you approach telefilm.
Yeah,
It's a good way to take the initial steps.
For sure. One of the things that we have in our guidelines is, we encourage applicants to reach out to the feature film executive in their region to meet with them before they apply, just to say, to say hello, to introduce themselves. We can talk about, what makes a strong application. We can talk about whether the project's ready to come in yet, because it is a lot. It's a huge amount of effort and work on the filmmakers' perspective to get this application in. And if you're not quite ready, it may be worthwhile kind of thinking, just putting some more time into creating the strongest package possible. We have a very kind of punishing rejection rate, unfortunately. It's at like 80% right now in terms of our production programs. So, you know, we really want to set you up for success when you're coming in. You know, it's a very much a director-driven program. So, you know, you have to start off for sure with like a very exceptional script. You know, like you have to have some very strong creative intentions behind your script. And then we really want to look at that director's statement or lookbook or whatever it is that you as the director want to put forward to show us what your perspective is. Really wanting that to be incredibly strong. And this helps our advisory committee, which is one of the changes that you referred to, take a look at your project and help us to score your project and see which projects we want to recommend to put forward for production financing. In the last 2 years, we've actually published a grid that you can find on the website and tells you exactly how the advisory committee is going to score your project. And it talks about creative elements, the track record of the key creative personnel, project viability, cultural impact, and audience reach potential. But, you know, I think Hiba was saying it as well, like before you reach out to us, take a look at the guidelines, read our essential requirements for whatever program you're intending to come in. It's kind of like set up as an FAQ format. So it's not that onerous, but it may it may help kind of like put things into perspective or answer that thing that you never quite could wrap your head around. And then, you know, hopefully come in and meet with us in person. But until then, we'll set up a Zoom call and really walk through your project and walk through your team and walk through the process. And I think you're so right when you talk about developing relationships and just letting us meet and talk a little bit about how telefilm is evolving and changing, and, you know, what you're thinking of for your company, for the project that you have like right in front of you, but also for the next couple of projects that you have like in the back of your mind. How can you best set those up for success?
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa. All right, Erin, Creasey, can you give us a little rundown on Ontario Creates?
Sure. So I'm going to talk mostly about programs and other ways that you can kind of interact with the activities that we do, as opposed to tax credits, because you have CAVCO here to give you the deal. But just as a side note, we do administer the tax credits for the province. So there's lots of information available on our website on tax credits as well. On the program side, so this is where we would be actually making investments in projects, or in some cases giving grants. We have a number of programs for the screen industry overall. So the one that I think people immediately think of is our film fund. Ontario Creates is our mandate is economic development for the province of Ontario. So our goals and our evaluation criteria are a little bit different than telefilms. It's like great to follow Melissa because I can explain some of the differences that we have. So when we're looking at performance measures for projects and results, and what we're really trying to do, we're looking at the projects that are going to have a really substantial impact on the province. So you're spending money here, you're creating jobs here, and you're also working on projects that hopefully will help your company itself grow so that you can do more work here in the province. So almost everything, not even almost everything that we do kind of boils down to our mandate and those kinds of metrics, which is not to say that we aren't interested in the creative, because we are. It's just that we have a pretty big emphasis on the dollars being spent in the province when we're evaluating projects. So the film fund, we have a feature film fund. We support drama and documentary animation. We only support feature length film. It doesn't have to be necessarily for a physical theatrical release, but we need to see that there's going to be some audience that you have a platform to share that film on. We have a minimum budget that's $1 million for the film fund. And like Dan was saying, like, this is a pretty daunting number. It's hard to get up to that level of financing. We're also a last in funder. So when you come to us, we have the expectation that all of the rest of your financing is already in place. In some cases, it might mean that your film is still maybe under review with TELEFILM and you're waiting to hear, which is okay. We'll look at your project, but we can't make a commitment until we have signed off financing commitments for the entirety of your financing plan. So ideally, production is coming to us kind of at the very end when you've secured everything else. For eligibility for the film fund, we also have an experience requirement that you have to have a producer credit on at least one previously theatrically released film. Now, again, to go back to what Dan was saying earlier about tax credits and having someone work with you who can help you, we actually also have a provision in our film fund that you can bring someone on, an executive producer, a qualifying producer, someone who does meet that criteria, who has agreed to mentor and work with you on your project. And then that will allow you to come into the film fund, even if you yourself don't have a producer credit on a theatrically released film. So all of the opportunities that you have as an emerging filmmaker for relationship building, finding producers with lots of experience who maybe are simpatico to you, all of that is helpful when it comes to the film fund. Within that film fund umbrella, we also offer a small development program, and we also support projects that we've invested in for production with a little bit of money for marketing when the film is going to be released. So that's kind of one bucket of programs. I also wanted to mention the Interactive Digital Media Fund because it actually covers a really wide range of types of products. And it's a little bit different. Our film fund is an investment, it's recoupable, which means that eventually when you start making money, you have to give us our money back. The Interactive Digital Media Fund is a grant, which means that that's money that is yours to complete your project with. And we look at a range of genres in interactive digital media. I mean, it could be like video games, but we also have a whole stream that's just for video content, for linear video content. So we support things like web series, really any length of, it could be like a feature film that's being released on a digital platform. It's pretty wide in terms of what could be eligible to come into our Interactive Digital Media Fund in terms of video content. And we see a lot of people actually, a lot of producers who maybe have done a feature and accessed support through our film fund, doing something different and accessing support through our Interactive Digital Media Fund. So I wanted to highlight that because it's they're two programs worth checking out for sure. In the Interactive Digital Media Fund, we support production, we support development activities, and it's a pretty big program, so a range of other things. We also have, as part of Interactive Digital Media, something called our Futures program, and that's an opportunity for producers or companies who maybe have a great idea but need to amass some of the business, pitching, legal, budgeting skills that we would need to see for an application. It gives people an opportunity to take some training sessions to get those skills, and then it fast tracks them for eligibility into the Interactive Digital Media Fund. And that's a program that we offer every fall with a range of industry trade associations delivering the programming. So it's something to watch out for. And then the last sort of buckets that I'll mention, I mentioned off the top, international business development. We support producers to attend markets internationally to help with co-production opportunities on the film side, or licensing, right sales, whatever business you need to do to get your producers need to do to get their films made. And we also, as part of our international business, we support producers in market as well. So we would host events or create different kinds of opportunities for you to meet and connect with producers from around the world. And then we also offer, through what we would call our industry development program, a number of opportunities for collaboration. We run the International Financing Forum at TIFF every fall during TIFF, which is an opportunity for selected producers from Canada and around the world to meet with executives who might be hopefully interested in investing in your projects. That program has been running for 16 years now and has a really actually very high success rate of films that have gone into production that have participated. And then we do other things, given our unique position, sort of seeing what's happening in a whole bunch of different creative sectors around the province of Ontario. Every year we have an event called From Page to Screen, where we match producers with book publishers from Ontario and give a little option incentive for people who are optioning books. So yes, very high level range of everything that we do. But Dan, I'm sure you have questions, being very familiar with our work at Ontario Creates.
Yeah, you know, it's what you're talking about all these programs. These are so important to get involved in, and I kind of got involved in almost all of them that I could, or any that I could, whether it's like international things, like programs that might be at a film festival or market internationally, you know, the programs surrounding festivals, you know, in Canada, like TIFF. Get involved, even if it feels like you don't really know exactly why it's relevant to you. You will find relevancy as you do it, and Ontario Creates, like other organizations here, are facilitating essentially a community that you can get involved in, and it doesn't have to have a specific, you know, point, like you're going to go in and come out with $50 or $50 million. That, you know, if that happens, wonderful. But really, the real benefit is to be involved in the community, and that's how you can find you know, a foothold as you build your career and your company. And you can frankly build your confidence, because that's one of the hardest things. Is it's so hard as you're building your career, as you're forging ahead as a filmmaker of one kind or another, and you have to pitch yourself, sell your project, pitch your project. It's confidence is kind of everything, and fake confidence is easy. But real confidence comes when you actually know you're on solid ground. And to me, that's where the community comes in. You're on solid ground if you know who your community is, you know what your resources are, and you know where your support is. And it's there, and it hasn't always felt open to everybody, especially people who are, you know, don't look like me, are not white men. And, you know, that needs to change. I think it's changing to some degree, and that feeling welcome in that community is a huge part of getting your career off the ground. So, and these institutions offer that opportunity. So I say take advantage of it.
Yeah. And I mean, I just, in terms of like, just to sort of elaborate on that a little bit and how you can do that with Ontario Creates. So first of all, the number one thing to do, sign up on our website for our newsletters for the sectors you're interested in. It's under Contact Us. That means you'll get all of our program announcements, opportunities, anything like that will come straight into your inbox. Don't hesitate to introduce yourself now that we're hopefully getting back to some more in person, that if it's not in person, to just send an email and set up a call. We're always happy to have a chat about what we do and to learn more about what you're doing and how your work might intersect with us. And it also honestly gives us an opportunity, you know, when we're hearing more about what emerging producers are working on, gives us an opportunity to think if there's something more that we need to be doing, or an adjustment that we need to make in a program, or potentially some kind of professional development opportunity that we might want to offer to the industry. So all of that feedback is super valuable, and it does actually, you know, turn into real things as time goes on. And I didn't mention this when I was giving my overview, but we have a number of program initiatives around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it spans across all of the programs that we offer. And in many cases, there are some lowered barriers to entry as applicable. So again, like there's lots of detail to dig into on this. All of the information is on our website, but it's tough to navigate. Totally get that. So there's lots of people on my team who are happy to chat, or I am, so we can always help keep those relationships going and get things going.
All right, Greg Jeffs, tell us about the wondrous William F. White.
The wondrous William F. White. Yeah, so my position kind of was born out of myself being a filmmaker, working with William F. White for 10 years in Calgary. making films, going to film festivals, popping into our Toronto office and kind of, seeing we have a sales team, but we don't necessarily have a direct line or someone who's actively filmmaking to understand what filmmakers are going through. So I kind of, made that pitch to our Toronto office that said, like, we have to understand micro budget filmmakers are, they show up to our door Friday before they go to camera Monday. And there's a massive world of hurdles that we can help them clear if we start dialogue at the point where they are considering applying for financing at TELEFILM or Ontario Creates or CMF or whichever fund they're going after. And essentially, created this method of contact that really echoes our catchphrase or our slogan that we've had on our hats and our jackets for years, which is partners in production. So a lot of my contact and my counterpart Tug out in Vancouver, a lot of our contacts early on, pre-pandemic, were grabbing coffee and sitting down and talking with filmmakers about their projects. That's the most exciting part of the conversation. We've got this really cool idea for a movie. Having that conversation at that point, helping them understand, the realities of the budget they're going after versus how they can preserve some of that enthusiasm and visual, just makes for a lot more better projects and a more happier filmmakers than the latter, where they show up on the Friday before production, everything's spent, they have nothing left in the pot, energy or money, and then it really comes down to just making sure they're not sacrificing their visuals, which at the end of the day, this is a visual medium, and that's the most important element to go out there. So a lot of the meetings that I take are literally talking about films and how can we do these really cool shots within a budget that we can achievably or realistically achieve. Like not a $5 million project, but maybe a $250,000 telefilm project. Maybe it's not a Pee-wee Dolly on your set because you've only got one or two shots that are going to require that motion. Maybe there's alternate options that can help you achieve that look without breaking the bank. That type of feedback and conversation going into applications, we found we've been able to preserve vision a lot better than filmmakers that are really just guessing, because it's really hard to guess what tools you need if you've never made a film before. We're a 50-year-old company. We have filmmakers and technicians on staff at every office that have been involved in projects. If you're talking to somebody out in Vancouver, they've probably been involved with 400 projects over the course of their career, and at some point in their creative career or someone within the company's career, they've encountered the problem that you're proposing, and we just kind of try and turn that expertise base into an asset to help filmmakers figure out what they need before they pull the trigger on projects.
Awesome. And to me, William F. White in particular, this could happen with a number of companies, but for me personally, my relationship with William F. White was absolutely key and, foundation of my career. There was a guy named Dan St. Amour who was at White's several years ago, who really mentored me, and really kind of walked me through, like, this is how you negotiate in a non-obnoxious way. And
yes,
that's huge, because then it gave me a little bit of confidence, gave me a little bit of a foothold in understanding how to communicate, even when the stakes are high, even when you're talking about a lot of money, and it's like going to determine whether you're on budget or over budget, whether you have a big problem or whether you're in smooth sailing. So, that's scary stuff. And it's made a lot less scary when when you have real relationships with all those people that are the major stakeholders in the process. And so
yeah, and
that's why it's not just a company you get stuff from, and pay for. It's really is a relationship, and it's an important one.
Well, it's important for filmmakers out there to realize, what I've been building on this end here in the Toronto side, and what Tug's been working on in Vancouver, is essentially making sure that the people that the filmmakers and our clients are in touch with are empathetic and understand what they're going, coming up against. All of our technicians, all of our maintenance team, and all of our floor staff I would say close to 90% of them are filmmakers. I'm producing a project right now where we have 3 of our key staff through maintenance as well as LED working on this show, and they're all learning how the real world implications of the equipment when it goes off the floor or leaves our shelf, goes out onto a set. There's no real way for them to learn how it gets beat up and the rigors of set without actually physically being on set. So this group that's working on this project now is going to be absolutely understanding when a production phones up and says there's something wrong with this dolly. We ran over this cable, and we can understand, okay, so these elements that are at this stage, based on our experience, it just creates a much more understanding and empathetic space to say, we know what you're going through and we can help do it, rather than just be that warehouse that puts equipment out, puts our hands up and bills you for damages when it comes back because we don't know what you're going up against. It creates a better space.
Greg, how much, this is not a big picture question, but I was shocked when I found this out initially. How much does a dolly cost? If you had to buy an average dolly, how much does it cost?
Well, that is the thing. You cannot buy.
How many Ferraris could you buy for the cost of it?
You cannot. Interestingly enough, a studio dolly, J.L. Fisher and Chapman Leonard, you cannot buy those dollies. Every single one of those dollies on planet Earth is officially leased from these 2 companies. So they manufacture, and they're top of the line for a reason. Screws and bolts, everything has been hand machined, and to that effect, those dollies are upwards of $350,000 for some of the smaller ones, up to almost $750,000 for the big high end super deluxe dollies that are on set. And to that end, that's where the movie business gets real. When you've got a Pee-wee dolly on your set and you realize
that's what I'm saying. This is real, like $750,000. These are not toys, is not a game like this. The stakes are high in this industry. Like we're dealing with equipment that is worth $750,000 for one thing.
Yes,
and so you can't take all that weight on yourself. You've got to understand what that means to the company you're dealing with. Like what, yes, like that they're entrusting you with a $750,000 item.
Yeah, and to me that's kind of the divide between the industry and the indie. That's where I like to fit and find myself, because a lot of times that is a dissuading for filmmakers. A lot of it's like, well, we're not at that level yet. But the other thing, the way that I approach it as a filmmaker, it's no different than the plumber who's got the $2,000 super fine wrench for doing this one specific job. It's obviously a lot more, but these are tools. And if we can if we can encourage filmmakers to understand that these are the tools of the trade that you want to get into, and they're not scary. If it's the right tool for the job, there are methods and there are ways to make sure that it happens to get into your hands. A lot of that is just figuring out the cost insurance. I mean, a $750,000 dolly is going to do one job. If it's the job that it's absolutely needed for, your insurance covering that dolly when it goes out on set, the technician you've got working on it, that's possible. But if it's imperative for that project, then that's where these conversations come into play, because then it becomes, okay, well, the rental cost on this thing is this much, but it makes this project better. Perhaps if it's like a Canada Council for the Arts or an arts project that you're looking at this piece for, we can help you with some proof of concepting. Or come into the studio, or come into the warehouse, we can do a little proof of concept shot, so you can show the funders or Telefilm or whomever that this is the tool for the job, and Whites can help facilitate the encouragement to make sure that the financiers understand that.
Okay, Taisa, we should give some proper time to you as well to talk about Actra.
Awesome. So thanks. That's so great listening to everyone else on this panel. So much wonderful information. So I'm going to speak now about working with professional performers, and it's as simple as lights, camera, Actra. So the Alliance of Canadian Cinema, Television, and Radio Artists is the union representing performers in recorded media in English language content across Canada. Actra has 27,000 members from coast to coast to coast and 9 branches of the organization, which are represented by these little dots on the map here. Actra Toronto is the largest branch of Actra with 15,000 members. There are 2 branches in Ontario, Actra Toronto and Actra Ottawa. Now, Actra Toronto's jurisdiction is actually all across Ontario, with the exception of the capital region. So again, if you're shooting in North Bay or Sudbury, that's still Actra Toronto's jurisdiction. Now, Actra is a union, and as a union, Actra is a member-driven organization, which means it's by the members, for the members. Now, as a producer, it's important to familiarize yourself with the various facets of Actra, but the most important thing for you to know is to get in touch with your local branch office. So wherever you are shooting in Canada, you want to get in touch with that Actra space. So essentially, if you are creating content anywhere in Ontario other than Ottawa, you would reach out to Actra Toronto staff. There's also Actra Performers' Rights Society. Actra PRS is the division of Actra that collects and disperses use fees for performers. And then there's Actra Fraternal Benefit Society, AFBS, which is our member benefits provider. And so how that works is both the producer and the performer contributes to the insurance and retirement program. And then Actra National, represented by this red logo here, offers support to all the branches and deals with cross-Canada objectives. So it takes so much time, effort, energy, and passion to write your script, to get into development, to apply for funding. And something that's an important thing to note is that you really want to invest in your production when you're going to camera by hiring professional performers. Actra performers are skilled professionals. They will come to set and they will know their lines, they can hit their mark, and they will deliver amazing performances, take after take after take. That's why you want to engage professional talent. And Actra members want to work with you. Actra Toronto and Actra National, all across Canada, the union is a proponent of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And Actra has a diverse membership, and we like to tell producers that they can cast the world with Actra performers. And we've actually had at Actra Toronto since 1984, the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. And the D&I committee advocates on behalf of culturally and physically diverse members. And there is also a National Diversity and Inclusion Committee as well. If producers are looking for diverse performers, we even have a website, a microsite as part of Actra Online called diversity.actraonline.ca to help them find performers. One of the main objectives of Actra is to negotiate collective agreements. So unions negotiate on behalf of all of their members, and this process is called collective bargaining. So there's a bunch of different agreements that Actra members work under, but today we're going to focus primarily on the Independent Production Agreement, the Green Book. Now, the IPA covers long-form content, so film, TV, web series, animation, industrial, documentary, and lifestyle. And Actra negotiates the IPA with the Canadian Media Producers Association and the AQPM. So what is in a collective agreement? Essentially, it goes over the wages and working conditions that are important for everyone to know. And you can find all of the collective agreements online at actratoronto.com. Now, for those of us who are tuning in from British Columbia, there is a different main film agreement called the BCMPA. So if you are a BC filmmaker, please visit the Union of British Columbia Performers Actra for more information on that contract. Now, when we talk about, the IPA, this is our main agreement, but we also at Actra have many low budget agreements to support filmmakers who want access to professional unionized performers. And most of the low budget agreements are actually based on the IPA. Now, each branch of Actra is autonomous. So I recommend to filmmakers to reach out to the appropriate office where you are, but I'm going to go through the various low budget agreements available across Canada. So the first is the Canadian Independent Production Incentive Program, aka Sipit. So this covers low budget Canadian features, MOWs, and TV series. And the way that Sipit is structured is there's a 15 to 45% discount on performer rates in the IPA. And fun fact, you can actually find the Sipit language in the IPA. It's found in Appendix 18. For filmmakers who are in Actra Toronto's jurisdiction, we have this fantastic contract called the Actra Toronto Low Budget Guideline. Now again, Actra Toronto's jurisdiction is all across Ontario with the exception of Ottawa. So the Actra Toronto Low Budget Guideline is for shorts and features with budgets under $350K. And each production, the way that it works is depending on your budget, you're assigned a tier. And that tier has specific rates for various performance categories. And really exciting is we do have a tier specifically for telefilm talent to watch productions. So again, if you are in Actra Toronto's jurisdiction and this sounds like a great contract for you, you'd like to learn more, please visit actratoronto.com/agreement/low budget productions. Now, for filmmakers who are tuning in outside of Actra Toronto and UBCP's jurisdiction, the Actra Indie production contract would apply. So the AIP is for films with budgets under $250K, and so we recommend that you reach out to your local Actra branch for rates. So again, if you're a filmmaker joining us from Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ottawa, Montreal, the Maritimes, or Newfoundland, please go to actra.ca to find contact information for your local branch. And then heading back out west to the West Coast, at UBCP Actra, there is the Ultra Low Budget Program to support independent filmmakers. And you can find all the information about the ULBs at ubcpactra.ca. Now, when working with Actra talent, there's a few things to know when you're doing your budgeting. So performers working under Actra agreements are paid session fees, and then those in qualifying categories, so not background performers, are paid use fees. There's administration fees paid by the producer, and there's also the producer contribution to the performer's insurance and retirement benefit program. So again, the performers pay in and the producer pays in. All Actra productions need to have workplace accident and injury insurance in place. So this is, again, in case there is an accident on set, the performer is covered. And then there's also a bond that is collected at the start of production that is a portion of your payroll and then is returned to you at the end of the production when it's wrapped. So I'm going super quick through all of this. If you have questions and you're like, I want to find out more, please don't hesitate to reach out to Actra and we will walk you through the process. Really important that everyone has the right to a safe and respectful workplace, whether you're in front or behind the camera. And Actra's agreements in the language speak to safe working conditions and freedom from discrimination and harassment. So even if you are accessing low budget contracts, really we recommend to, filmmakers to read the IPA as well, because it's going to have more fulsome information, as our low budget contracts tend to be a little bit smaller. So we always recommend, please refer to the IPA. Really crucial, if you have performers under the age of 18, if you have any stunts, or if your project has nude or intimate scenes, please let Actra know, as there are specific rules around this type of work. So for example, if you are working with performers who are under the age of 18, there are stipulations on the number of hours the children can be in front of the camera, and they need to be aware of missing school. Essentially, we want to be sure at Actra that being engaged in the screen-based industry is not detrimental to a child's education or well-being. Essentially, safety and respect is a priority. Actra protects performers, and if you have questions about this, Actra is more than happy to walk you through the process. If you need assistance finding performers for your production, Actra has an online database of performers called actraonline.ca. So if you are looking for a performer that can speak Tagalog, or you need someone that is really good at juggling, you would register your register your company and search on Actra Online for those performers. And then we have 4 microsites covering background, diverse, stunt, and voice performers. Basically, Actra members want to work with you, and Actra will do everything we can to facilitate, engaging professional performers on your production, no matter the budget. So that is a very brief overview of all things Actra related. You can find out more information at actratoronto.com. Feel free to email me. My email address is tdekker@actratoronto.com. You can also follow the union on social media at Actra Toronto. And for those tuning in from elsewhere in the country, please visit actra.ca to find contact information for your local branch.
Amazing, thank you. So there's a few questions I'm going to get to from the audience in a moment. I'm just going to say for one second, because you gave us a ton of great information there about Actra. But I want to say from a producer or filmmaker point of view, unions and guilds, why you should love them. Basically, put simply and succinctly, their success is your success. You know, the unions and guilds are what makes the industry sustainable. There's a kind of an energy as you're starting in film to just want to throw everything you can at the wall. You're spending your own credit card money, like you're doing everything you can. And that's understandable. And because it is so hard to get to that point where you're actually making something, but it's not sustainable over the long term to be asking for people to be working for free, all of that stuff. You've got to move past that unless you're frankly a bunch of independently wealthy people, then you can do whatever you want, I guess. But if you're not, as I certainly wasn't when I started, you've got to find a way to make the whole thing work for everybody, not just you. And the unions and guilds are what creates that stability for the long term for all the people you depend on to make your projects with. So don't fall into that cliche of antagonism with unions and guilds, because they are part of what makes your long-term success possible. So questions. Jennifer asks about tax credits. Are they guaranteed? How do you make tax credits work to your advantage in co-productions? How do productions finance tax credits? I can speak to a couple of things in there, but Hiba, do you want to speak to that initially? You're muted there.
All right, sorry about that. So first of all, are they guaranteed was the first part of the question. So they can't be guaranteed. We have our guidelines, which are available, and we ask that you try your best to contact us before, and we're here to help you throughout the process. We really, really dislike denying applications. We know that we're here to help, and we're here to harbor Canadian talent, so we try our best to help you, but there can't be a guarantee per se.
And that I would just add, you know, there's no guarantees in very many places.
Right.
So I understand why you don't want to use the word guaranteed, but they're very solid and predictable is what I would say about them.
Right.
In terms of, like, if you accept that very little in the world is guaranteed, these are very solid and reliable processes to get the tax credits. It really is about doing it properly. If you do it properly, I would go so far as to say you will get the tax credits. I like
maybe you can say that, but I can't because I work for CAVCO.
Okay. That's my perspective, and I'm pretty conservative when it comes to stuff like this.
And the second part of the question, sorry, what was the second part?
How do you use tax credits in the context of a co-production?
So co-productions, first and foremost, you would have to check the TELEFILM website with regards to co-productions. So when a production is a co-production and you want to apply for the federal tax credit, first you have to apply with TELEFILM. And so the way our tax credit works is there are two parts to the tax credit, the Part A and the Part B. So in order to apply for the Part A, you would need the preliminary recommendation from TELEFILM. And then for the Part B, you would need the final recommendation from TELEFILM. So all of that information is available on the TELEFILM website. Canada has treaties with, I believe, 60 countries. Don't quote me on that, but it's around that number. So they have treaties with regards to treaty co-productions, and you'd have to check the TELEFILM website for that and obtain their recommendation first before applying to a tax credit.
Right. And I'll just sort of add to that. There's two kinds of co-productions. There's interprovincial co-productions, which, you know, I've done several between, say, BC and Ontario, or Quebec and Ontario, or I'm pretty Ontario centric, so Nunavut and Ontario. Then there's international co-productions where there's, I think, 56 treaties with different countries around the world. And if there's a treaty between Canada and that country, an audiovisual treaty, then you can co-produce with that country. You can access tax credits from Canada and probably that country as well. It's essentially a way, when there's natural fit you shouldn't, one thing about co-productions, I won't spend too much time on this, but a mistake a lot of people make about co-productions is thinking that it's somehow a way to just automatically add money to your finance structure. It's not that. It only really is a good idea when there's some form of natural co-production between either the provinces or countries. So like say you have the project is written and going to be directed by one person from one country or province, but you want to shoot it in the other. That's sort of an obvious way that there could be a natural fit for a co-production. They're not something to force because you think they're automatically going to give you more money. It's sort of a misconception. All right, next question. Sean asks, what is the time frame that we have to pay back Ontario Creates for their digital media fund? Nice, straightforward one.
Very straightforward. The time frame is never, because the digital media fund is a grant.
Great answer.
Yeah, boom. Isabel asks, do you have to be an Ontario resident to apply to Ontario Creates?
Mm-hmm. You do to look at the eligibility criteria on our website, but the short answer is yes.
Cool. All right, Hank would like to know, if you have letters of intent from Actra actors and big organizations like William F. White for your production, does that make an impact on your application to funding bodies like TELEFILM or Ontario Creates?
From my perspective, it helps kind of show us how much work you've already done on the project, how far along it is in terms of its evolution. We know that we're often first in, at least on the low budget program. So, it's very difficult to get a commitment from an actor when you have no financing attached to your project. But if you are actively in talks with people, it really helps us see kind of where you're at. And it also is another clue to us in terms of like what your creative aesthetic is, your creative choices are. It just really helps fill out the picture of the project.
Right. Yeah, but I think it's a good idea in general. I would just say it might not be something that automatically triggers funding or something like that, but just sort of knowing who your partners are going to be. Why not establish that early and not do it last minute? It's probably, there's going to be subtle advantages through the process, I would say, to having that mentality anyway. All right, so Leah asks, do you offer the option incentive for Canadian novels that have representation but haven't been published yet? That's for Ontario Creates, for Erin.
So the option incentive that we have is it's pretty limited. It's limited to people who've actually participated in our From Page to Screen event. So it's not just widely open. And the participants in that event are book publishers who are also our stakeholders that we support, who have published books. So we don't have any incentives for kind of anything outside of that particular realm.
Cool. All right, well, those seem like those are the questions. Are there any more questions? I think we can go for a minute more. I guess that's the questions. I'm going to end on a heavy note, actually, to sort of speak to what I was saying about community. So there's, we talked about some of the networks that build community in Canada. A lot of these organizations, especially TELEFILM and Ontario Creates, help to build those communities internationally as well. And those networks, they're real and they matter. Right now, there's just an example I'm going to give you of how this can literally matter and in a big way. There are some of these networks that I've been involved in, producer networks and filmmaker networks, that are helping people from Ukraine right now. There's people who are, there's some of those communities there's reach outs happening, there's support being given, there's, as people navigate escaping and trying to, in some cases claim refugee status and things like that. So these networks, these communities, right now it's about us being filmmakers, and that's important to us, but they're real communities. and you can establish that kind of depth of relationship where in a situation like this, it actually comes into effect and matters. So this is not just some sort of perfunctory T to cross or I to dot in your career. It's the foundation of having a stable industry and community, and it matters. So that's super serious way to end it. But just reach out to these folks, and honestly, this is an incredible panel of people. Like these are the people, many of the people who will help you build what you want to build. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Jen, you're muted.
Oh.
Fail. Yeah, there we go. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciated this panel. And while I have you all here, I just want to remind everyone that we have an in-depth conversation and interview masterclass with Sud Sutherland online right now, as well as this panel will stay online for the duration of the festival. And we have 3 cheers and chats, fireside chats with excellent filmmakers that discuss indie directing, creating genre, and actors who are multi-hyphenates and how they transition their careers into other formats. So please stay tuned for those next week and enjoy the films. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.